Welcome back to Conversations That Awaken by Joe Bandra. If you've been with us since episode 1, thank you for taking this journey with us. Over the first 10 episodes, we've questioned many of the assumptions most of us inherited without ever examining them. We've explored the nature of reality, the illusion of separation, the origins of belief, the question of God, the self-organizing universe, the fact of being, the limits of language, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. You may have noticed that we've returned to some of the same ideas more than once. That wasn't by accident. Some truths cannot be understood by hearing them only once. They must be approached from different angles, examined through different lenses, and reflected upon until they become your own direct insight. Repetition is not about convincing you, it is about inviting you to observe more deeply. Our purpose has never been to give you another belief system. It has always been to encourage you to examine, question, investigate, and ultimately understand for yourself. Because borrowed knowledge is information. Direct experience, on the other hand, is transformation. If you're joining us for the first time, we encourage you to begin with episode 1. Each conversation builds upon the previous one, forming a journey from questioning the world to questioning the one who believes they are separate from it. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for listening. Take a moment to become fully present. Set aside, just for a little while, everything you think you know. And together, let's question everything. I am Kim. I hope you had the opportunity to read or listen to Finding Neve by Joe Bandra. The name Neve, heaven spelled backward, symbolizes a journey of self-discovery, an inward return to the source of true happiness. It is an invitation to look beyond the stories we tell ourselves, rediscover our authentic nature, and awaken to the peace and wholeness that have always been within us.
Imagine looking at a medical x-ray. You break your arm, you go to the hospital, and the technician slides a film up on that glowing whiteboard.
Right, yeah.
There's this expectation of absolute engineering level precision. You see a jagged white line running through a humerus bone, and the doctor points a pen at it and says, there is the break. That is reality.
Yeah, it's totally binary. It's either broken or not broken. You don't debate the philosophy of the fracture, right? You just put a cast on it.
Exactly. We completely crave that level of visibility.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When things can be categorized, measured, and pointed at, they feel safe. It gives us this illusion of total control over our environment.
But the moment you try to apply that exact same diagnostic machinery to human consciousness or to the fundamental nature of reality itself, the machine just shorts out.
Yeah, totally fails.
The x-ray comes back entirely blank, or worse, it shows this infinite hall of mirrors. We are left looking at a diagnostic landscape that is incredibly murky.
Very murky.
So, if you are tuning in because you want to understand the fabric of reality, who we are, and whether our apparent separation from one another is just an illusion concealing a much more fundamental unity, well, you are in the right place.
You definitely are.
We are doing a deep dive today into a fascinating document, and it captures a meeting of two completely contrasting minds.
And the contrast is huge.
Right. On one side, we have Deepak Chopra. Most of you know him. He began his career as a conventional physician, a medical doctor, before totally pivoting to become a world-renowned teacher focused on consciousness, meditation, and human potential.
And acting as the counterweight in this text is Joe Bandra.
Right.
He is a 30-year veteran of the healthcare technology industry. His entire professional life revolves around the very physical, highly empirical, life-sustaining machines that monitor the human body in intensive care units.
Wow. So he deals in hard data.
Exactly. He deals in heart rates, in oxygen saturation levels, the physical reality of keeping people alive.
The contrast is just massive. We have the expansive, historically spiritual view colliding with the highly technical, machine-driven perspective of a tech executive.
Yeah.
And the question they're wrestling with is quite literally the biggest question a human being can ask. Is consciousness the ground of reality? We're going to give you a shortcut to the most vital insights from their dialogue. Okay, let's unpack this.
I think it is worth clarifying our role as we dive into. We are impartial guides to this text. We are not endorsing one worldview over the other or, acting as referees in a debate.
It's a great point.
Interestingly, the document itself does not frame their interaction as an argument at all. It is a collaborative exploration. We are simply reporting how these two highly distinct thinkers approach the exact same mystery, starting with an initial meeting they had years ago in San Jose, California.
Out of all the things a spiritual teacher and a healthcare tech executive could discuss over coffee in Silicon Valley, the text notes that their conversation immediately zeroed in on quantum entanglement.
Yeah, which is pretty wild.
Right. Which, on its face, seems like an incredibly dense physics puzzle to casually bring up.
It does.
Right.
Let's actually define the mechanism of quantum entanglement, because it is the linchpin for their entire exploration here.
Please do.
So, in classical physics, the physics of baseballs and car crashes, things we interact with every day, objects only affect one another through direct physical interaction or through fields like gravity.
Sure, cause and effect.
Right. But in the quantum realm, if two subatomic particles, say 2 electrons, interact in a certain way, they become mathematically entangled.
Entangled, okay.
If you separate those particles, and researchers have done this in laboratories, separating them by miles, and theoretically you could separate them by galaxies, they remain correlated.
And when you say correlated, you mean that measuring the state of one particle instantly dictates the state of the other, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
If you measure particle A and find its spin is pointing up, particle B will instantaneously be found to be pointing down. Instantly. It does not matter how far apart they are. There is no time delay for a signal to travel between them. It happens instantly, completely violating the speed of light.
Wow.
Albert Einstein famously hated this concept. He called it spooky action at a distance because it implied that the universe is not made of isolated, independent building blocks. It implies a deep, underlying interconnectedness that physical space just cannot break.
I find it fascinating that they chose this as their starting point. I mean, they didn't start with ancient scripture. They started with the weirdest, most universally accepted anomaly in modern physics.
Yeah, they really did.
Because once you admit that subatomic particles can be intimately connected across the universe without any physical wire connecting them, it immediately begs the question, what does that say about us?
Exactly.
You and I are made of the same subatomic particles. Is the fact that I am sitting in this chair and you are sitting in yours the ultimate truth of our existence? Or is our physical separation just an optical illusion?
To map that exact question, the text introduces a central metaphor that we will return to throughout this deep dive. Imagine a massive, ancient mountain.
Okay, a mountain.
2 travelers decide to climb it, but they start on completely opposite sides.
So the east and the west?
Yep. The traveler on the eastern path is highly analytical. He studies the geological formations, he categorizes the flora and fauna, he measures the temperature of the streams, he is cataloging the tangible reality of the ascent.
Very scientific.
Right. Now, the traveler on the western path operates entirely differently. She is observing the movement of the clouds, listening to the silence between the wind gusts, and focusing on the expansive internal feeling of the atmosphere.
So if you were to interview them halfway up the mountain, their descriptions of reality would be completely incompatible.
Fatally.
One is reading you a spreadsheet of rock density, and the other is reciting a poem about the mist.
Precisely the point the text is making. However, when they both finally push through the cloud line and reach the absolute summit, the horizon is no longer divided into an eastern view and a western view.
Oh, that makes sense.
They are standing on the same peak, looking out at the exact same undivided 360-degree reality. The pathways were different, the languages were different, but the destination is identical.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because it is very easy to nod along to a pretty metaphor about mountains.
Sure.
But as the person trying to figure out how this applies to my actual life, I have to ask, can a guy who spends his life looking at heart monitors and a guru who spends his life meditating actually reach the same summit?
It's a fair question.
Isn't it incredibly likely that they're just using the same grand words like consciousness or interconnectedness to mean entirely different things? I mean, a physicist's definition of entanglement is mathematical. A spiritual teacher's definition of connection is emotional or metaphysical. Mixing the two feels dangerously close to pseudoscience.
That skepticism is absolutely necessary. And it appears Bandra shares some of that exact caution in the text. The source material does not just leave us with the mountain metaphor and ask us to take it on faith.
Oh, good.
It rigorously tests their alignment by subjecting their viewpoints to a series of analytical frameworks, starting with fundamental philosophy. We have to establish what they even mean by reality before we can decide if they agree on it.
Let's do it. The philosophical starting line in this text forces us to look at the most basic assumption every single one of you listening walks around with.
Yeah, the default setting.
We naturally assume, because we have to, just to cross the street without getting hit by a car, that reality is an external world made of solid, independent objects. I am an isolated subject trapped inside my skull, looking out through the transparent windows of my eyes at an objective, physical universe.
It is the default setting of the human mind. But the text asks us to rigorously question that default. It poses a direct inquiry. Have you ever, even once in your entire life, experienced an external world outside of your awareness?
Well, my immediate instinct is to say, yes, I'm experiencing an external microphone right in front of me right now.
But how do you know the microphone is there?
Because I see it.
You see it, which is a visual perception. You can reach out and touch the metal, which is a tactile sensation. You might hear the subtle hum of the electronics, which is an auditory perception.
Right.
Where do sight, touch, and sound occur? They do not occur out in the physical room. They occur entirely within your awareness. You cannot provide a single piece of evidence for an external universe that is not in itself a perception or a thought happening within your consciousness.
Wow, that feels like a trap. It's like trying to bite your own teeth or trying to step outside of your own field of vision to look at your own eyes.
That's a great way to put it.
You can't do it because the very tool you are using to look is the thing you were trying to find. But if everything I know is processed through the knowing itself, how do our two climbers interpret this?
According to the text, Chopra asserts that consciousness is the fundamental ground of all reality. In his view, the physical world is not a collection of dead matter that somehow miraculously gave birth to thought.
Okay.
Instead, matter, energy, time, and space are all appearances or behaviors within an infinite universal field of awareness.
So consciousness isn't the exhaust fumes produced by the engine of the brain. Consciousness is the space in which the engine, the car, and the entire highway exists.
Exactly.
How does Bandra handle that? Because coming from a tech background, that sounds wildly unscientific.
Bandra approaches it through cautious empirical deconstruction rather than making a cosmic claim. He asks what we can verify right now. You can observe your physical body, correct?
Yeah, so I can look at my hands.
If you can observe your body, then the body is an object appearing in your awareness. You're the subject observing the object. Furthermore, you can observe your thoughts. You can say, I am having an anxious thought about a deadline.
Right. I've had plenty of those.
If the thought is being observed by you, the thought is also an object.
I see where this is going. If I can observe my emotions, my memories, and even my personality traits, then none of those things can be the ultimate me. Because whatever the true I is, it must be the silent witness watching those things happen.
What's fascinating here is the flashlight analogy the text uses to illuminate this mechanic. Normally, we think of awareness as a flashlight carried by a person in a dark room.
Okay, shining it around.
Right. You point the flashlight at the chair, you see the chair. You point it at the wall, you see the wall. But Bandra suggests we invert this completely. What if the illuminated chair, the wall, the flashlight itself, and the body of the person holding the flashlight are all images appearing within a boundless illuminated field of awareness?
Our vocabulary is so ill-equipped for this. The text points out that Chopra calls this overarching field universal consciousness. Bandra uses a very different term, the divine creator principle. And I want to pause on that because the word divine carries heavy religious baggage.
It does, but the text is very careful to define Bandra's use of the term. He is not talking about a deity in the sky pulling levers.
Good to clarify.
He uses divine creative principle to describe the unfathomable, intrinsic intelligence and ordering potential of the universe itself. The fact that a single fertilized cell knows how to divide and eventually form a human eye, capable of reading a book, that inherent organizing capacity is what he points to.
So while Chopra uses a term that evokes Eastern spirituality, Bandra uses a term that almost sounds like an engineering principle, a set of cosmic operating laws.
Yeah, exactly.
But they are pointing at the exact same mechanism, and the text offers this incredible ocean and wave analogy to lock this in.
The ocean and wave analogy is essential for understanding their shared philosophical summit. Imagine a single wave moving across the surface of the Pacific.
Just one wave.
The wave has a specific shape. It has a height, a speed, a temporary boundary. Because it has this temporary form, the wave develops an ego. It says, look at me, I am a distinct individual. I'm faster than the wave next to me. I was born in the deep water, and I am terrified because eventually I am going to crash on the shore and die.
The wave is suffering because it believes its temporary shape is its permanent identity. It thinks waveness is all it is.
Right.
But what is the wave made of? It is 100% water. It has never, for a single fraction of a second, been separate from the ocean.
Not once.
The ocean is just doing a temporary dance called a wave. When the wave crashes on the shore, the shape disappears, but not a single drop of water is actually lost. It just returns to the formless whole.
The philosophical proposition here is that you and I are waves. We have temporary shapes called bodies and personalities. We feel separate. But our fundamental substance, the awareness looking out through our eyes, is the ocean.
Which naturally leads to a massive glaring problem. If philosophy suggests that we are all just the ocean, why do I feel so incredibly isolated? Why do I get defensive when someone insults me? If I am the infinite universe, why does getting stuck in traffic or receiving a passive-aggressive email make my heart rate spike? How did we get so profoundly confused?
To answer that, the text moves from abstract philosophy to the mechanics of psychology. It examines how the human mind constructs the illusion of a separate self from scratch. It asks us to look at a newborn baby. When an infant is born, it arrives without a psychological resume.
Right. A baby doesn't know its nationality. It doesn't belong to a political party. It doesn't have a social class.
Exactly.
It certainly doesn't lie awake in its crib comparing its net worth to the baby next door. It just experiences raw, unfiltered sensation. Hunger, warmth, light, sound. There is no me yet to claim those sensations.
Exactly. The construction project begins slowly. First, the parents assign the child a name. Then come the cultural expectations. The child learns which behaviors earn praise and which earn punishment.
The conditioning starts.
Yes. The child absorbs traumas, successes, rejections, and belief systems from their environment. The text describes this process as experience writing a psychological autobiography.
Year after year, the brain records this data. I am the person who is good at math but bad at sports. I am the person who was betrayed by a friend in middle school, so I don't trust people easily. We build this massive, complex database of preferences and defense mechanisms.
And eventually that constructed story looks in the mirror and makes a fatal error. It claims, "This is who I am."
Wow.
According to the source material, Chopra refers to this ordinary, everyday identity as conditioned consciousness. It is essentially a bundle of conditioned reflexes. Bandra frames it as the transition from the innocent mind of the infant to the constructed self of the adult.
I think we need to be really clear here because a lot of pop spirituality demonizes the ego. It tells people they need to destroy their constructed self.
Right, which is impossible.
Right. But the text adds a crucial caveat. The constructed self is not evil. It is a necessary survival tool. You need an ego to function in society. You need to know your name when the barista calls your coffee order. You need a practical identity to pay your taxes, lock your front door, and remember which family is yours.
The dysfunction does not lie in possessing a constructed self. The text argues that the dysfunction and the root of human psychological suffering begins when the tool becomes the master. When you forget that it is a tool. The document provides a brilliant theatrical analogy to illustrate this construct.
Let's walk through that. Imagine you are a brilliant actor hired to play Hamlet. You put on the costume, you learn the lines, you step onto the stage, and for 3 hours, you fully embody the tragedy of the Prince of Denmark.
Okay.
That mask is incredibly useful for the play. But what happens when the play ends?
If the actor is healthy, they take off the costume, go home, and make dinner. But the text suggests that human beings have forgotten how to take the mask off. We walk off the stage and continue believing we are the tragic character.
It's exhausting.
It really is. We spend our entire lives defending the honor of a fictional role. We get deeply offended if someone critiques our performance. We become violently jealous if another actor gets a bigger dressing room.
And worst of all, the actor lives in constant terror of the play ending because they firmly believe that the death of the character means the literal extinction of their own being. They've confused their underlying existence with the temporary costume they are wearing.
To update the metaphor for a modern listener, the text uses a computer analogy. Think of the psychological self, your ego, your personality, your memories, as a software application running on a computer.
A very complicated app.
Very. This application is highly complex. It has customized settings, a massive cache of memory, and specific notification alerts that go off when it feels threatened.
But the application is not the operating system, and the operating system is definitely not the raw electricity that powers the entire machine. If the application crashes, the electricity is completely unharmed. The text is pointing out that pure awareness is the electricity. Your personality is just an app running in the foreground.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So what does this all mean for the person listening to this right now? I think the final analogy in this section, the sky and the storm, is one of the most practical tools for daily mental health I've encountered. The text makes it clear that realizing you are not your ego does not magically insulate you from emotional pain. You are still going to feel grief, anger, and anxiety.
But it radically alters your relationship to those states. When a heavy emotion hits, the constructed self completely identifies with it. It says, I am angry, I am depressed, I am terrified. It merges the subject and the object into one suffering entity.
But if you step back into that pure awareness, the electricity, the ocean, the language completely changes. Instead of I am angry, you simply notice anger is present in the body. Instead of I am terrified, you observe a sensation of fear is currently moving through the nervous system.
The text compares awareness to the open sky and emotions to passing weather systems. The sky does not resist the storm. The clouds can be pitch black, the lightning can be fierce, the wind can howl. But the sky itself is never cut, bruised, or damaged by the storm. When the storm eventually exhausts its energy and passes, the sky remains completely untouched.
I absolutely love that. You aren't being asked to deny the storm. The storm is real, the rain is wet, the thunder is loud. You don't have to pretend you aren't sad or angry. You are just invited to remember the sky. It provides immediate breathing room.
It really does.
But this brings up a major roadblock for me. If our psychological self is just a constructed app, a story we tell ourselves, what does hard science have to say about the actual physical hardware running that app? Let's push into the third lens, science.
The text does not dismiss science to make room for spirituality. In fact, it acknowledges that the scientific method has utterly transformed human life, revealing the mechanics of everything from microscopic cells to distant galaxies. However, the text points out that the deepest lesson of modern science is actually profound humility. It constantly proves that our common sense is wrong.
Exactly. I wrap my knuckles on this wooden table and it feels completely solid. My senses tell me it is a dense, continuous block of matter.
Right.
But physics tells us that this table is almost entirely empty space. The feeling of solidity is just the electromagnetic repulsion between the electrons in my hand and the electrons in the wood. They are pushing against each other like magnets. Science proves that reality is not obligated to conform to how my biology perceives it.
And this is where the text leverages neuroscience to validate some of the philosophical points we just discussed. Neuroscience reveals, with empirical data, that the brain does not passively record the outside world like a video camera. It actively constructs our experienced reality.
Let's break down the mechanism of that because it's wild when you actually think about it. Take the concept of color. Out there in the physical universe, there is no such thing as red or blue.
None at all.
There is only electromagnetic radiation moving at different wavelengths. A photon of a specific wavelength bounces off an apple, travels through the air, and hits the retina at the back of your eye.
The retina absorbs that photon and converts it into a tiny electrical impulse. That electrical signal travels down the optic nerve and enters the visual cortex at the back of the brain. Now keep in mind, the brain is sealed inside a thick bone skull. It is pitch black in there. It is silent.
The brain has never seen an apple. It only receives an electrical code in the dark. And somehow it processes that code and hallucinates the color red. It projects the image of a 3D apple into your conscious experience.
It's basically magic.
Basically, the red doesn't exist on the apple. The red is an interface created by your nervous system to help you identify ripe fruit so you don't starve.
The text refers to this biological setup as a virtual reality headset. The sights, sounds, smells, and textures you experience are a neurological rendering, an evolutionary user interface designed for survival, not for perceiving absolute truth.
The text uses the metaphor of a fish in the ocean to explain why we miss this. A fish swims its entire life completely surrounded by water. If you ask the fish to describe water, it wouldn't know what you were talking about because it has never experienced the absence of water.
Yeah, water is just everything to a fish.
Exactly. The text suggests we overlook consciousness for the exact same reason. We try to find consciousness as an object in the world, forgetting that the world is an object appearing within consciousness.
But while science provides these incredible insights into the mechanics of perception, the text draws very firm boundaries regarding its limitations. And this is a crucial distinction between Chopra and Bandra. The source text explicitly warns against abusing scientific terminology. We return to quantum entanglement here.
Right, the spooky action at a distance.
The document is very clear. The fact that two subatomic particles are mathematically correlated across vast distances does not scientifically prove human telepathy.
Thank goodness they said that.
Yeah, right. It does not prove that your soul is immortal. It does not provide empirical evidence for a conscious universe. Physics deals strictly in measurable mathematical relationships. The moment you use quantum mechanics to justify spiritual belief, you are no longer doing physics, you are doing metaphysics.
I am so glad the text highlights that, because frankly, it drives me crazy when people use the word quantum as a magic wand to validate whatever mystical idea they want to sell.
Me too.
But I have to push back hard on this entire biological VR headset concept. I understand the neuroscience. I get that my brain is rendering the apple. But if my entire experienced reality is just a biological simulation designed to keep me alive, how can I possibly know what base reality actually looks like before the rendering? If I'm trapped in the headset, I can never see the real world.
You have articulated the exact edge of the scientific map, and the text addresses this limitation beautifully with a classic philosophical axiom. The map is not the territory.
Explain that.
Science is the greatest map humanity has ever drawn. It can map the chemical composition of a star. It can map the neural pathways of fear. It can map the atomic weight of oxygen. But a map is merely a symbolic representation of reality. It is not the reality itself. If you are freezing to death in the woods, a highly detailed topological map of a campfire will not warm you.
A chemical formula for water H2O cannot quench your thirst.
Exactly. Neuroscience can map the exact cascade of dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin that floods the brain when a parent holds their newborn child. It can explain the evolutionary imperative for attachment, but that neurological description does not even begin to touch the actual lived internal reality of what it feels like to love your child. Science maps the how, but it fundamentally cannot answer the what is it like to be.
So when the scientific map reaches the edge of the paper, when we hit the absolute boundary of our biological VR headset, what do? We have to look deeper, which transitions us perfectly into the fourth lens, metaphysics.
Metaphysics asks the questions that science cannot measure. What is the fundamental nature of existence? Why is there something rather than nothing? What is the reality that is wearing the biological VR headset?
According to the text, Chopra offers a sweeping metaphysical proposition. He suggests that the universe is not a dead mechanical machine that accidentally spawned biological life in a random corner of space.
Right.
Instead, he proposes that the universe itself is consciousness. It is a singular, infinite awareness playing a grand game of hide and seek, experiencing itself through billions of different biological viewpoints.
Bandra's approach to metaphysics in the text is notably more restrained, reflecting his empirical background. He relies on his term, the divine creative principle. He defines this not as an entity, but as the staggering, incomprehensible potential inherent in the fabric of existence.
To ground this, the text provides the analogy of a seed, which I think is one of the most powerful images in the entire document. If you take a tiny acorn and slice it open under a microscope, you do not find a miniature, fully formed oak tree folded up inside. You just find cellular material and genetic code.
Yet if you plant that acorn in the soil, provided with water and sunlight, that microscopic code will organize raw matter into a towering organism with deep roots, a massive trunk, and thousands of leaves capable of photosynthesis. Reality possesses this undeniably miraculous capacity to self-organize from pure potential into complex life.
And the text points out that this principle scales all the way up to the cosmos. Billions of years ago, the universe was just a superheated soup of hydrogen and helium. Those elements clumped together to form stars.
It's incredible to think about.
It is. The crushing pressure inside those stars forged heavier elements like carbon, iron, and calcium. When those stars exploded in supernovas, they scattered those elements across the galaxy.
And those exact elements eventually coalesced into planets, oceans, and biology. The carbon in your DNA, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, they were literally forged in the hearts of dying stars.
But here is the metaphysical punchline the text delivers. The universe didn't just build dead rocks, it organized those star-forged elements into human brains and eyes. Which means the universe literally grew eyes so it could look up at the night sky and see itself.
That is just wild.
Right. It grew a brain so it could wonder what it is. We aren't just living in the universe. We are the universe acting out a specific behavior.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text uses another analogy to challenge our assumptions. The carpenter. Our default human logic insists on separating a creator from its creation. We assume there must be a carpenter who stands completely apart from the wood, hammering nails to build a table.
We apply that to the universe. We assume there is a creator God out there who built the universe down here.
But metaphysical inquiry asks, what if there is no carpenter separate from the wood? What if the carpenter, the wood, the tools, the hammering, and the final table are all one single, continuous, indivisible process happening right now?
It's like a dancer in a dance. You can't point to the dancer and say, there is the dancer, and then point to the empty stage and say, there is the dance. The dance only exists while the dancer is moving. They are the same event.
Bandra offers a profound piece of caution here in the text. He explicitly states that the goal of metaphysical inquiry is not to tear down a scientific, materialistic belief system just to replace it with a warm, fuzzy, spiritual belief system. He isn't trying to sell a new dogma to make us feel better about death.
Right. He says the goal is to enter the great unknown without feeling the terrified, compulsive need to instantly cover it up with an answer. I love how he phrases it. The unknown is an open window letting in fresh air. It is not an empty room waiting for you to cram your philosophical furniture into it. Just let the window be open.
As elegant as metaphysical frameworks are, they remain intellectual exercises. You can memorize the concept that you are the universe looking at itself, but reading a book about water doesn't make you wet.
Definitely not.
This brings us to a critical transition in the text. How does a human being actually experience this indivisible reality? We must move into the fifth lens, mysticism.
I know the word mysticism makes a lot of people instantly roll their eyes. We hear it and picture someone meditating on a mountain claiming they can levitate or trying to bend spoons with their mind.
Yeah, that's the stereotype.
But the text aggressively demystifies the term. It strips away all the supernatural baggage. It defines mysticism simply as the direct, experiential recognition that the boundary between the self and reality is a mental illusion. It is an experience, not a superpower.
And the document details how our two subjects approach this experiential shift from completely different angles. Chopra advocates for a systematic, gradual path. The text notes his roots in ancient Indian traditions like Vedanta.
Let's pause and give a quick I'm 5 for Vedanta because the text drops that term and we shouldn't gloss over it.
Please do.
Basically, Vedanta is an ancient philosophy from India. If you wanted to boil it down to a single sentence, it's the idea that the core of your individual consciousness is fundamentally identical to the ultimate infinite reality of the universe. It is the philosophy of non-dualism, no separation.
Thank you. Yes, Chopra uses the tools of Vedanta, yoga, and meditation as a gradual training program for the mind. It is a slow peeling away of the conditioned psychological layers over years or decades, steadily walking up the mountain toward that realization of pure awareness.
Bandra's experience, as recorded in the text, is the polar opposite of a gradual climb. It was abrupt, spontaneous, and unearned. The text provides an incredibly specific timestamp for his awakening April 15, 2020, at exactly 4:18 in the morning.
It is a striking detail to include in a spiritual document.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Why include the date and the minute? When you read accounts of enlightenment, they're usually draped in poetic vagueness. I was on a silent retreat in the Himalayas, and the cosmos opened to me.
Right.
But stating April 15, 2020 at 4:18 a.m. sounds like an IT guy reading an error report from a server log. It completely strips the event of its mythic, glowing aura. It roots this infinite, mind-bending realization in a mundane Tuesday morning reality. It tells the listener this is a biological, cognitive event that can happen in your bedroom.
The text describes the mechanics of what happened to Bandra at that exact minute. It states that for a period of time, the familiar psychological reference point known as Joe simply ceased to exist.
The software application crashed.
Exactly. The mask fell off. There was no psychological identity left to defend. There was no philosophical system to argue for, no past to regret, and no future to fear. The text describes what remained as a state of immeasurable presence, profound peace, and absolute love.
But the text makes a crucial distinction here regarding the ego. It says that this experience did not feel like Joe had finally achieved enlightenment. It wasn't a prize that Joe won. It felt like reality was simply what remained when Joe temporarily got out of the way. The awakening was entirely impersonal.
The text uses the metaphor of the cloud and the sun to illustrate this mechanic beautifully. In spiritual circles, the ego often treats enlightenment like a certificate of achievement it needs to earn. If I meditate for 10,000 hours, I will build enlightenment.
But you don't build the sun. If you look up at the sky on an overcast day, you don't see the sun, but you know with absolute certainty that the sun is burning just as brightly behind the clouds. The clouds do not destroy the sun, they merely conceal it. When the wind blows the clouds away, the sun is revealed. The text is saying that pure awareness is the sun. Your busy, anxious, chattering mind is the cloud cover.
Awakening is just the wind moving the clouds. You aren't acquiring a new magical state of being. You are just temporarily removing the obstruction that was hiding what was already there.
The text offers another analogy for this realization, the movie screen. Imagine you go to a theater. The lights go down, the projector turns on, and for 2 hours, you are completely mesmerized by the movie. You tense up when the hero is in danger, you cry when a character dies, your heart races during a car chase. You are totally absorbed in the illusion of the film.
But if you force yourself to look past the moving images, what are you actually looking at? You're staring at a blank, unmoving white screen reflecting light.
And the screen itself is completely untouched by the drama projected onto it. If there is a massive explosion in the movie, the physical fabric of the screen doesn't catch fire.
Yeah.
If the movie shows an ocean storm, the screen doesn't get wet. When the hero dies, the screen remains perfectly intact. The text asks us to consider if our underlying awareness is the screen, and our entire life, our biography, our problems, our physical bodies is just the movie playing on it.
A profound psychological shift. But the text does not let us linger in the theater. It aggressively pulls us back to reality. It asks, how does this realization survive contact with ordinary life? Which brings us to the sixth and arguably most important lens, everyday living.
Because it's very easy to feel at one with the universe at 4:18 a.m. when your house is silent and everyone is asleep. But at 7 a.m. the alarm goes off. Your toddler is throwing oatmeal on the floor. Your boss is emailing you in all caps about a missed deadline. You have to navigate traffic.
Reality hits hard.
It does. If a mystical awakening only makes you sound profound at dinner parties, but shatters the moment you get cut off on the highway, the text argues it is completely worthless.
The text is uncompromising on this. It attacks the concept of spiritual bypassing the tendency to use high-level spiritual concepts to avoid dealing with practical, emotional, or psychological problems. It states that any teaching about consciousness must enter the kitchen, the workplace, the hospital, and the marketplace.
The ultimate stress test for spiritual insight, according to the document, is not your ability to eloquently debate quantum physics and Vedanta. The test is exactly how you treat the human being standing right in front of you at the grocery store checkout line.
That's the real test.
If you preach about universal consciousness, but you are chronically impatient with your spouse, or you refuse to listen to a coworker who votes differently than you haven't transcended your ego. You've just decorated your ego with new spiritual vocabulary words.
If the underlying reality is truly interconnected, if we are all waves on the same ocean, then compassion ceases to be a moral commandment. It's no longer a rule written in a book that you have to force yourself to obey. Compassion becomes simple intelligence. It is reality recognizing itself in another form.
The text drives this home with the visceral analogy of the two hands. Imagine you accidentally slam your right hand in a heavy car door. It is crushed, bleeding, and in immense pain. What does your left hand do?
The left hand immediately reaches over to cradle and nurse the right hand.
Exactly. And the text points out what the left hand doesn't do. The left hand doesn't pause and ask, well, does the right hand deserve my help? Did the right hand earn it? Is the right hand the same political party as me? The left hand responds instantly, instinctively, because both hands belong to the exact same body. They share the same nervous system.
The document asserts that humanity's greatest tragedy is operating as if one hand has completely forgotten the other. Nations bombing nations, families dividing over inheritances, individuals destroying each other on social media. It is the literal biological equivalent of the left hand attacking the right hand. It is waves trying to assassinate other waves, unaware that they are just damaging the ocean.
But I appreciate that the text remains grounded. It explicitly says that waking up to this reality does not require you to renounce the world. You don't have to sell your house, shave your head, and move to a monastery. You can still have ambition. You can build a tech company. You can raise a family. You can argue a case in court.
You play your role in the movie, but you play it wholeheartedly, knowing it's a role. You don't let the role become the claustrophobic definition of who you are.
This raises an important question, though, and I want to push on it. How does this perspective actually help someone who is suffering right now? Because if I am diagnosed with a terminal illness or if I lose someone I love, telling me we are on the ocean feels like a hollow platitude. It doesn't stop the pain.
The text addresses pain with brutal honesty. It states clearly that physical and emotional pain are guaranteed features of the biological VR headset. Bodies decay, illnesses strike, relationships end, and death is inescapable. Pain is mandatory. But the text makes a vital distinction. Suffering is the mind's reaction to the pain.
Ah, I see. Pain is the raw data. Suffering is the story we tell about the data.
Exactly. Suffering is massively intensified when the ego looks at the inevitable pain of life and demands permanence. The ego says, this shouldn't be happening to me. My life is supposed to be safe and comfortable forever. It demands a contract of immunity from the universe. And as the text bluntly notes, life never signs that contract.
The resistance to reality is what causes the exhaustion. The text uses the metaphor of navigating a river. Acceptance does not mean passive surrender. It doesn't mean becoming a doormat and letting life drown you.
Right.
But you cannot successfully navigate a boat down a river if you spend 100% of your energy screaming that the current should be flowing backward. You have to accept the absolute reality of the river's direction before you can pick up a paddle and steer around the rocks.
That brings us to the culmination of their dialogue. We have viewed reality through all 6 lenses: philosophy, psychology, science, metaphysics, mysticism, and everyday living. We have seen the profound common ground Chopra and Bandra share regarding the illusion of separation and the necessity of compassion.
But the source text is sophisticated enough not to force them into perfect, artificial harmony. Before wrapping up, the document outlines 3 very clear, specific differences in their approaches. It shows exactly where their paths up the mountain diverge.
The first fundamental difference is one of assertion versus inquiry. The text notes that Chopra, drawing on his deep roots in spiritual traditions, confidently asserts an answer. Universal consciousness is the absolute ground of reality. He stakes a definitive claim.
And Bandra?
Bandra, reflecting his empirical diagnostic background, refuses to stake that claim. He prefers to stay strictly with direct, present-moment inquiry. He intentionally leaves a massive, open space for the great unknown, refusing to name it or define it.
The second diverging path is their relationship with science. Chopra frequently and enthusiastically uses scientific concepts like quantum entanglement, neuroplasticity, and epigenetics to validate and illuminate his points about spiritual interconnectedness and biological healing. He builds a bridge between the lab and the ashram.
Bandra is highly conservative on this front. While he respects the scientific method, the text shows he strictly separates experimental physics from philosophical metaphor. He cautions against using the mathematical weirdness of quantum mechanics as a Trojan horse to sneak in metaphysical beliefs.
And the third difference is the scope of their cosmology. Chopra offers a very grand, expansive view. He talks about the evolution of consciousness across eons, pulling from ancient texts and offering a sweeping theory of everything.
Yeah, a massive scale.
But Bandra's approach is radically localized. He strips away all cosmology, all religion, and all scientific theories and simply asks what is undeniably present right exactly now. His entire foundation is just the raw, unadorned fact that you are aware in this specific second.
To synthesize these differences without resolving them, the text offers one final, brilliant analogy: the prism.
Right. If you shine a beam of pure, undivided white light through a glass prism, the light refracts. It separates into a spectrum of entirely different colors: red, blue, green, yellow. If you only look at the colors, they appear distinct and completely separate from one another. Red is definitely not blue.
But none of those colors possess their own independent existence. They're all just expressions of the single light passing through the angle of the glass. The text suggests that Chopra's expansive spiritual cosmology is one color. Bandra's cautious, direct inquiry is another color. Scientific materialism is a color.
But no single color owns the light. They are all necessary to see the full spectrum of the mystery. The perspectives enrich the whole, rather than forcing us to declare a winner or a loser in a philosophical debate.
Which brings us to the outro of the source document. And it does not end with a summary of concepts. It ends with a direct experiential invitation to the reader. It asks you, right now, to pause.
I want to walk through this exact exercise with you. Wherever you are listening to this, in your car, walking your dog, sitting at your desk, just pause. Notice a physical sound in your environment. The hum of the refrigerator, the sound of traffic.
Yeah, just listen.
Now notice a physical sensation in your body. The weight of gravity pulling you into your chair. Now, notice a thought passing through your mind. It could be a judgment about this very deep dive.
The text asks you to observe the sound, the sensation, and the thought. And then it poses the ultimate question of the entire document. What knows the sound? What knows the sensation? What knows the thought?
And it comes with a strict warning, do not answer that question intellectually. If your immediate reflex is to say, my brain knows it, the text reminds you that the biological concept of a brain is right in this exact second, just another learned thought appearing within your awareness.
Is that true?
It asks you to try and find the boundary line where your internal awareness ends and the external reality begins. If you really look, can you find an edge?
The gentle conclusion the text guides us toward is a total paradigm shift.
Yeah.
You are not a tiny, isolated fragment of consciousness locked inside a biological meat suit, staring out through two eye holes at a massive, hostile, indifferent universe.
It's so relieving to hear that.
You are the ocean, temporarily exploring what it feels like to dance as a specific wave. Awakening is not acquiring superpowers. It is simply remembering a fundamental unity that was never actually absent.
There is also a vital grounding warning pulled from an old Zen proverb included at the end. Do not mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself. Every word spoken today, the text of the document, the famous gurus, the empirical tech executives, the spiritual analogies, they are just fingers pointing at the sky.
Do not worship the pointing finger. The text urges you not to believe Chopra simply because he has sold millions of books. Do not believe Bandra simply because he had a profound realization at 4:10 a.m.
Good advice.
Do not even blindly trust the authoritative narrative voice inside your own head. Question all of it, rigorously, but do it from a place of profound wonder rather than cynical defense.
The very last line of the source text is staggering. It reads, "You are reality looking back at itself. You are the question and the answer." And I want to extrapolate on that for you listening right now because it demands practical application.
Absolutely.
If this premise is true, if we are literally the universe's biological mechanism for experiencing itself, if we are the eyes and ears of the cosmos, does the quality of our daily attention actually change the universe?
That is a staggering implication.
Think about it. When we are sitting on the couch, mindlessly scrolling on our phones,
Right.
numbly swiping past infinite videos for hours, completely dissociating from the present moment and refusing to be present in our actual physical lives, is that merely a personal bad habit?
Or something more.
Or, under this framework, is that the universe itself actively choosing to ignore its own majesty? Is it the cosmos numbing itself out? Think about that the next time you feel completely ordinary or bored or trapped in the mundane rhythm of a Tuesday. You are the universe hiding from itself behind a screen.
A profound and slightly terrifying thought to linger on.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Remember to respect your own pace of learning. You don't have to figure it all out today. The mountain isn't going anywhere. Step back, take a breath, and whatever the weather happens to be in your life right now, remember the sky.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from the conversation. Your support helps us continue exploring the deepest questions of life, consciousness, and reality. I am Julia Carter, and it is my honor to introduce Joe Bandra, author, philosopher, speaker, healthcare technology pioneer, and lifelong explorer of life's questions. Through his writing, Joe bridges science, philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and direct experience in a search for truth. His first book, Finding Nevaeh, is a transformative journey of self-discovery and the search for lasting happiness. His second book, Body, Mind, and Machine, chronicles his remarkable career and the evolution of healthcare technology. His next book, The Nature of Reality, explores consciousness, existence, and the mysteries at the heart of human experience. Joe's work invites us to look beyond what we think we know and awaken to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
Life often feels like an endless list of tasks, constant noise and distractions, pulling us in every direction. We're all searching for happiness, but what if we've been looking in the wrong places all along?
This was Nevaeh's journey. Lost in the noise, she felt cut off from the peace and happiness she longed for, until she met Joe Bandra, an unconventional, insightful philosopher with a different perspective. Jay, as he is simply known, didn't hand her a map. He gave her something far more valuable, a compass, a way to turn inward, navigate her own thoughts, and uncover the clarity hidden beneath the chaos.
Readers around the world have been touched and inspired by finding Nevaeh.
Your journey to inner peace begins now. Get your copy of Finding Nevaeh, available on Amazon and at findingnevaeh.org, or listen to the audiobook on Audible, Spotify, Apple, and other platforms.